So our next speaker is not just someone who believes in independence, but she's living proof of what happens when you exercise your independence. She was kicked out of the BC Conservative Party for telling the truth about the discovery that wasn't at residential schools. So she gives a voice to people instead of towing the party line. And I think that's important because right now, 1 in 3, and I bet it's probably higher, British Columbians are now ready to talk about separation. Not because they hate Canada, but because they love BC too much to watch it get sold off, shut down, and steamrolled any longer. Dallas Brodie is one of the few people brave enough to even have that conversation. So please welcome Dallas Brodie. She's the MLA for Vancouver, Quilchena. Did I do that right? I did it, good. And the interim leader of the brand new One BC party. Dallas, welcome to the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so honored to be here with you today. I am Dallas Brodie. I'm a born and raised Vancouverite. I do have some connection to Calgary. My father was in the oil and gas business in Vancouver and did some time with Turbo Resources and Trans Mountain Pipeline. And he always thought that Calgary was the most incredible city in the country. He said they really know how to get things done there, Dallas. They work all around the clock, no unions, everything just gets done. He loved it. Anyway, I never planned this to be here in politics. I guess none of us really know why we end up where we are, but here I am. I was watching the mess develop in my beloved hometown of Vancouver and started getting involved civically with some other women who were very concerned watching the drug addiction and the mayhem develop in Vancouver. It's an absolute disaster. Still is. Anyway, I got busy and I ran for election. The first time in my riding, I didn't get elected, and the second time, I did get elected. But a little bit of background on me, a little bit more, is that I did go to public high school in Vancouver, and then I left and went to university at Princeton University in New Jersey. And a little bit of fun fact there is that I wrote my senior thesis on the National Energy Program in Canada and how it was a disaster for the oil and gas industry in Canada. So I feel in good company here today. After that, I went to the University of Toronto Law School. And after graduating from law school, I went back to Vancouver. I did corporate securities and real estate law for about 7 years. Then I did about 7 years of criminal defense work for young offenders. I had a 100% legal aid practice. After that, I decided to take a break from law, went back to school briefly, got a certificate in broadcast journalism, and worked for 7 years in broadcasting. I actually did 2 years at CBC, right in the belly of the Mother Corp in Toronto and Ottawa, and that was quite an experience. I was not very political back then, but I knew that I did have common sense views on things, and this was in 1999, 2000. And while I was there, I started to become educated as to the terms they used when they would send journalists out on jobs. So I was told one time to go out and get a story, and they said, Dallas, don't forget to get your viz-min. And I didn't know what a viz-min was, and I was going to the Canada Day celebration in Ottawa, and they said, well, you have to make sure you get your visible minority people. And this was a policy that they had, and then the other policy they had is make sure you find a victim. And it didn't matter if the audience that you were interviewing was mostly all of one ethnic group or anything, you still had to make sure you got everything to do this representation that became completely unrepresentative of the actual group that was there. And so I also noticed that if you went to do a story and it was on welfare cuts, you weren't allowed to point out that there were several Nintendo things there and wall-high stacks of cigarette boxes that someone was using to sell. And we were told, and you quickly learned also at CBC that if you let it be known that you had any conservative leanings, you would quickly be sidelined out of the story and you would not get any work. It was very clear. Anyway, I did have a good time working at the Fifth Estate. I learned a lot about investigative journalism there, and then went back to Vancouver and worked in radio. After deciding that I got out of journalism after a while, the money was bad, and I went back and became an arbitrator at the residential tenancy branch in Vancouver for 10 years, where I did landlord-tenant hearings. I now run a small business in Vancouver. I'm an MLA, and most importantly of all, I'm a mother of twin teenage daughters who are 17, and I'm here doing this because of them, really. So my political journey, I got elected with the Conservative Party of British Columbia last fall, and went to Victoria with high hopes that we were going to pursue the campaign promises that we had made while campaigning. It was an exciting policy platform. There wasn't anything in it that I had to plug my nose and say, okay, I'll go along with that. It was a really solid platform. But what I found out, and this is what we've been discussing, or I've been hearing discussed a lot today, is that when you get into a party and go over to the legislature, something really happens. You get into this room with all these people you've never met before, and you start finding out who's who, and you realize very quickly that not all the people you ran with were actually conservatives cut from the same cloth that you thought that everybody was going to be. And the people behind the scenes have actually brought candidates into the party who don't go along with the actual agenda of the party. And now the fun starts, because caucus meetings become a bit of a rumble as people start figuring out who's got the guts to stand up for what we originally ran on. Well, this is very uncomfortable, and you wonder why nothing gets done. So you get there, and the minute you start swimming against the current or standing up against the party whip who tells everybody how to behave, you stand up and start speaking, and you quickly realize, uh-oh, I don't know if I've got anybody standing up with me. And so you quickly learn to sit down in the meetings and try not to say anything anymore, because then people don't want to be seen talking to you in the hallways. It's really like this. They don't want to sit with you at the lunches, because if they're seen with you, the bosses will see that they're talking to you, and they'll think that now you're associated with that person who's swimming against the current. And this is really what happens. And it's scary to watch it happening, and people you thought who were going to be strong and stand with you, they gradually get intimidated, and I can understand why. I don't feel anger at these people. It's really hard. And so this is what begins to happen to people. So then I guess I need to jump to the story that sort of put me out here, and why I'm here today is the expulsion. I got expelled from the party because of this situation. I was the Attorney General critic for the Conservative Party because of my legal background, and a story had arisen at the Law Society of British Columbia where a lawyer, a really brave man named Jim Heller, had raised some concerns about some materials at the Law Society of British Columbia. They are the mandated course materials on Indigenous culture and awareness. I don't think that's the exact name, but in any event, the materials still, even now today, contain a part of it that says that there were 215 bodies discovered at the Kamloops residential school grounds. And most of you will recall, I'm sure, the 2021 when this announcement was made, and it went directly from Canada to the New York Times, straight to the UN, and everything started going crazy. The Canadian flag was lowered to half-mast and was kept there for, I believe it was half a year. Churches started being burned around Canada. I believe the number is close to 200 churches. Some were burned right to the ground, and others were badly vandalized and ruined. Other things that happened is that the United Nations labeled us a genocidal state, and the pile-on started. And it was in the context of that that Trudeau went and knelt at the grave, and we all became filled with guilt about these 215 children who had supposedly been buried in a mass grave at the Kamloops residential school. So when this lawyer, Jim Heller, pointed out that even today there have been no bodies found at the residential school, he was ignored and ignored. And then finally he brought it up at the annual general meeting of the Law Society of British Columbia, and brought a resolution saying these materials had to be changed, because if there wasn't truth at the Law Society, where was there going to be truth? We can't have documents containing patently false information there. And in the context of him bringing this resolution at the annual general meeting, they posted some documents from a BC Indigenous awareness group that labeled this lawyer as a racist and something, a new name that's called denialist. And when complaints were registered about this, the Law Society still did nothing. So Jim Heller is now in a lawsuit with the Law Society for defamation of character, for being called a racist and a denialist. Okay, so I saw this. I realized that the Law Society needed to do something about this very quickly. I made a post on X, which I had permission to do, and that's when all hell broke loose. The post was up for 2 hours saying there are 0 bodies found, these materials need to be corrected, and the Attorney General needs to immediately speak to the Law Society about this and get this figured out. This lawyer shouldn't have to defend himself. And so then I got a call saying you have to take the post down. And I said, but I just put it up. And it's true, and I wouldn't take it down. And then the pressure came on even more, and when I wouldn't take it down, the pressure was building and building. And then I went on a Zoom call and I was speaking to some people, and the party took something that I had said in the video, did a hack job on it. It was brutal. They made a 3-second thing that made me look really bad. And I was making mockery of sort of woke cultural Marxism that says there are always my truth, your truth, his truth, that truth. And really, in this case, there's really only one truth as the facts stand today right before us. There are no bodies that have been found actually anywhere across Canada with these digs that have been funded by the federal government. So I actually thought that this should be a source of happiness to Canadians and to the Kamloops Band and other bands, that there isn't a terrible mass grave. And the story is even worse because they said that little children were forced to go out in the middle of the night to bury their friends in this grave. It's a terrible story. And we need to be released from the shame and guilt of this story because it's not true. We all know that bad things happened at the residential schools, but also good things happened. But even for me to just say what I just said makes me a denialist, apparently. So I was then expelled from the party, and in a vicious press release done by my party with no notice to me, saying that I was mocking child sex abuse victims and giving support to pedophiles. It was really terrible, and considering my background working for youths, and many of whom had been Aboriginal, it was just sickening. But it shook me up, but I kept going, and I kept moving forward, and I sat as an independent. I was, and 2 other MLAs left with me at that point because there were other problems in the party. So the good news is that now we have formed a new party in BC. It just happened this week. And Tara Armstrong, who's also an incredibly strong woman from the Kelowna area, she's an MLA also with the Conservative Party who left. She has joined with me, and we have formed a new party called One BC. And some people have joked that we should be called 2 BC because there are 2 of us, and maybe soon we'll be 10 BC, but for right now we're going to be 1 BC, and we're really excited. Now, the broad strokes on this party are exciting because of what I've heard today. We're looking, it's dramatic for British Columbia because we've been drifting so far into socialism in that province. I mean, you guys have no idea how good you have it here. We're pushing for massive tax cuts, spending cuts, and cuts in red tape. We want to defend our history, culture, and families. We want to defund the reconciliation industry that exploits Indigenous suffering and is tearing apart our province. We also want to stop mass immigration into our province. It is decimating our hospitals, schools, and infrastructure. We can't handle it. It's overwhelming us. And the housing, it's causing all sorts of problems. We want to eradicate gender ideology and woke policy from our schools. Get rid of it. I love what MLA always says, afuelo. I want to get rid of it. I want to bring back competition, capital, and innovation from our private sector, particularly in our healthcare system in British Columbia. It's terrible there. I don't know what it's like here, but we're not allowed to have any private clinics, and they keep shutting everything down that seems to work. And then I want to just say a word here about on BC and separation. I never thought I'd really be speaking about separation, but what's interesting is that without any boosting or official discussion of this topic, of people under the age of 54, 30% of people now are talking about separating from British Columbia. So our party doesn't have any position on this except for let's listen to these people and hear what they're saying and why they want to leave. We do know that in the people under 30, we now have 2 out of 3 young people leaving BC, 1 out of 3 people leaving in general population, and we've had net out-migration out of British Columbia for the first time in our history. It's very dire out there. Our resources industries are just flailing around, and I spoke briefly about this reconciliation industry, and people sometimes ask me what I mean by that. And what we're talking about here, and now that I've been able to see the public accounts books in BC, and I've been able to see the payments that are going out, I mean, this is staggering money. And since 2021, we've done some analysis of what the spending looked like. This is just provincially, so that the line sort of went along like this for a few decades, and then since 2021, it's literally gone up like that, the funding, and this has gone out to Indigenous things, programs from all ministries. This isn't just from the Ministry of Indigenous Affairs and Reconciliation, it comes out in different ways through all ministries. So it's been a real uptick, and we're seeing land transfers and joint decision-making offered because we've done something in BC that no other province in Canada has done. After being designated the genocidal state of Canada, I'm sure many of you have heard about UNDRIP. UNDRIP is something, it's called the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. It's an aspirational document drafted for worldwide Indigenous cultures. It's worth reading. It's only about 35 pages, but you should read it. It's very, it's a good document. It's not too long, but you should be aware of it. But what British Columbia did, unlike any other province, is they passed a piece of legislation in BC called DRIPA. And the DRIPA stands for the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act. And we took UNDRIP and took all the principles of it and pulled it all down and embedded it into BC. So literally now, not one piece of legislation, every piece of legislation now has to be redrafted to be in compliance with UNDRIP. So this is the problem this is causing is that we have 204 bands in BC, and they're all asserting territorial jurisdiction over more than the entire landmass of BC. We have 3 bands now who are actually claiming 3 bands fighting amongst themselves for territorial jurisdiction, and the Supreme Court of Canada just recently decided they would step in to mediate this dispute between these 3 bands. And then what's happening is when resource industries want to come and do work in BC, they have to get, do the consultation, and we've got two big problems with that. We've got extremely well-funded environmental groups funded by US-backed massive organizations, the Tides Foundation, Pew, Soros, and so on, who are funding these groups, and they've been shutting down BC. And then even if there are bands who want to allow a pipeline to go through, these groups will bring up their rent a mob, and they will put on their masks and blockade and make it impossible for the work to go ahead. So it's a big problem, and even our Premier David Eby is starting to find out that this is a real problem, because we now, with the tariffs from the United States, they're saying we need to get busy up here, but it's hard to get busy when everybody's asserting control. So it's similar to having like 204 governments plus the provincial government doing this. So here I am. I'm hoping to make a difference in my province. I look to you for so much inspiration, and today has been very inspirational for me. And I also wanted to share a couple of things that have helped me learn about politics and get through it. I've always been a big admirer of Margaret Thatcher. She's a strong woman who did so much. And when I was feeling scared and wondering, oh my God, what am I going to do? Nobody's going to speak to me anymore. I have no friends. And it was scary sometimes. I've had death threats. I've had to have police get involved with my life. And it's uncomfortable. I've never done this before. Margaret Thatcher said, if your goal is to be liked, then you will compromise on anything at any time, and you will achieve nothing. She also said, because I've taken a lot of hate, people call me a racist, a denialist, terrible names, and no one likes to be called those things, but truthfully, you need to get over it and realize that you just walk through that fire and keep going. You know your heart, okay? And the good news is that I've received letters from Indigenous people from across the country thanking me for standing up and speaking. And that warms my heart. And I know all Canadians really do want a better life for our Indigenous friends and people, and that's what we all want. But we don't like it when we're seeing money going out the door and nothing changes. This is the problem. So when I do get these personal attacks, I also think of another thing Thatcher said. She said, I am immeasurably happy when a personal attack is particularly wounding, because I know I've won the political argument then, because they have not one argument left to make with me. She was amazing. So, and from the amazing Steve Bannon, who was the one who inspired me to get busy and try and save my province. I don't know if many of you know who Steve Bannon is, but he's an incredible political strategist in the States. And he inspires me, and you know what he always says is action, action, action. And he says, use your agency, and if you're not doing something, you're part of the problem. And he also says, be a force multiplier. So even if all you can do is write one letter once a week, that's awesome. Just do something, because as someone said here earlier today, it's not Dallas Brodie who's going to fix it. It's not Donald Trump. It's not any of the leaders. It's all of us together working and pulling and rowing in the same direction. So I really took that to heart and realized, you think guys like Bannon and Trump and these guys, they have this power, but they can't do it without everybody helping them, and we need to do our share. And then my final quote is, which I find really inspiring, is James O'Keefe is this undercover investigator in the States, and his motto is, be brave, do something. So that's where I'll leave it for today, and I'll take any questions you have.
Okay, I'm on. Sorry, I did it again. Any questions for Dallas? Hands up. Oh, I see one. I'm running. All right.
2 seconds.
I could have been faster.
I saw you on TV. You were in Parliament talking about BC independence. There was a big, strong move for that. And I saw how EB was saying, there's no way this is going to happen. There's no way this is going to happen. How do you fight against that?
Well, what David Eby has said, he's got this way of being condescending to people when he speaks. He doesn't I don't think any politician should do that. Like, you have no right to talk down to the people. I don't care whether you agree with them or disagree with them. And he talks down, and he said to British Columbians, this is a tired old trope, and I want people to stop talking about this. And so when I brought it up in the House, instead of him answering my question, he got very angry and said that I was the most hateful, racist person that had ever been in the legislature. Yeah. And so all I can do is, now that, what I can say is we can do is that now that we have a party status, there are good things about being a party because we can form policy, but the benefits you have once you're a party as opposed to sitting as an independent is you get the benefits of being party status. So we are going to now, Tara and I will each get a question every day in question period, which is great, and we get the benefit of 2-minute statements. And 2-minute statements are things we can clip and post and send out there and broadcast, and we can raise issues in the House. We get to be on all committees, and we will be raising this issue and talking about the concerns of British Columbians and why they want to separate. Because we have, all of Northern BC voted Conservative, both provincially and federally. So we have a really big rural-urban divide in our province. Vancouver, I'm the lone Conservative MLA in the Lower Mainland, in the Vancouver area. Everything else is NDP in the major city centers, and that's the way it seems to go. Probably similar to Alberta. We're going to be working on it. We'd love to.
Having 2 seats and party status, in Alberta it would take 4 seats to gain party status. Let's talk about growing the party. What are your thoughts? What's this potential? You said 10. Can you draw some people from any of the other parties to join you? What's the plan? Make it bigger.
Thank you for the question. We believe we can. People are understandably nervous. Another thing that happens to people when they get into office is they start worrying about being reelected, because in BC you have to do 2 terms in order to get your pension. I hate this, but this is what people do, and I just decided, for me, I'm taking the risk, and I will let the chips fall where they may when it comes to reelection. And so what we are going to do is, we believe that some of those other Conservatives, though, are going to, now that they have a landing pad and they know that they will maintain their status, and if they see, we're getting a lot of press this week, it's been really positive. Yes, we have haters, but they're, it's actually surprisingly positive. And I think with that, we may see some Conservatives join us. And believe it or not, I had some NDPers sometimes talking to me and saying, hey, thanks for your questions. So, bigger, surprises happen. And we are also going to start just building our party by having meetings. And I might even ask Ezra if he could do one of these out in British Columbia. And maybe you can all come out there. Give us some of your spirit. We could use it. And so this is how we will continue to grow it. We literally just launched this week, and it's been a whirlwind. So if I look a little tired, that's why. Thank you.
All right, over here.
Just a New Zealand comment, and that is, if you get under somebody's skin, have a good scratch.
You might say that again, I couldn't quite hear.
He said, it was just a comment, if you get under somebody's skin, have a good scratch.
Thank you. I also always remember, if you're getting incoming, it means you're over the target. And I know that we are hitting some political hot potatoes here, but what I was noticing was happening is that we decided we were going to talk about all these issues, mandates, personal medical freedom, getting rid of SOGI, which is a program in our schools called Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity. And as we got over into the Victoria, the sliding doors started closing like this, and we were down to this sort of stripe down the middle that were the only things that we really were ending up focusing on, which was like fentanyl, which is important, but there's more than that, and healthcare problems, and all of those other really hot issues were being ignored. And so Tara and I are going to hit those ones. You know this case that happened in the United Kingdom recently, where the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom announced that a biological woman is a woman? That was a 6-year case funded by J.K. Rowling, and 6 Scottish women took that to court. And when that decision came out, my colleague Tara got up in the House and asked the Attorney General if she would now say whether the BC government would acknowledge or tell us what they believe a woman is. And it was just like the whole place went so silent, and the Attorney General answered and said, the repulsive questions that come from these two women. I mean, it's incredible what they say to us, really. These sickening questions that are being asked, causing division and so on. And what I keep saying in response to this is this identity politics, woke culture, all of this is causing more division than I've ever seen in this country in my life. I am 63 years old now. Things used to be better and more fun in the 70s and 80s than they are now. And I want people to experience life where we're not all talking about this all the time, sex and race and, things like that.
Okay, last question for Dallas from the young lady here.
If or when BC separates, would their debt disappear, or will they have to still pay it off?
That's a good question. I remember when Quebec was planning to leave, we would all say, you have to take your debt with you, please. I think that, British Columbia, that's a good question. I don't know. Haven't even studied it yet, but I'm assuming that would be part of the deal, that you take it with you. But the thing is, we have a serious deficit problem in British Columbia right now. Since COVID, it's jumped. We've gone from a $6 billion surplus to a $14 billion deficit. So this NDP government has burned through, actually it's only been since the most recent premier got in, he's burned through that much money since COVID, or in 4 years, I guess it is, yeah, so.
All right, everybody, round of applause for 1BC interim leader Dallas Brodie. Thank you so
Stay
much,
strong.
Dallas.